was a very interesting drive from the Eastern Shore this morning. We started out with sleet, and then we had just plain ice, and then we had sleet, snow, and ice on top of the road, and then huge flakes of snow, and then now closer to the city, snow about 1.5 inches on the road. So I was taking my time and being very careful. So thank you for your indulgence of my lateness, and it's nice to see everybody.
Too.
And looks like we have a quorum. And do we have someone on the phone?
Ms. Wallace on the phone.
All right, welcome. Good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
So we're going to begin, and we are now called to order. We have a consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries, and the consent agenda is approved. Let's start now with Section 2 in our books, page 14, 21st Century Building Plan Process.
Hey, Gary.
Want to introduce our guests?
Good morning. These gentlemen were from the Maryland Stadium Authority, and Gary McGeegan and Eric Johnson. And also, could you introduce yourself?
Good morning, Cynthia Hahn. I'm Assistant Attorney General for the Stadium Authority.
Nice to meet you.
Well, thank you very much for coming today. We thought it would be prudent to have a discussion about the role of the Maryland Stadium Authority. And since we have lots of new folks at the table, we welcome you today, and we look forward to your presentation.
Good morning, Gary McGuigan with the Stadium Authority, and we agree and we're glad to be here. The presentation focuses on the state relationship, basically the Stadium Authority and the IAC. And when the law and the MOU were crafted, there was careful consideration, because of two state entities, of not having two people do the same thing. So we focused with the IAC, or the IAC focused on your strengths, which is academic and educational, and the MSA focused on our strength, which is project management and contract management. So turning to page 3, just a little bit of background. The program came about from a report from 2012 called the Jacobs Report, which really established the need. The city had the oldest inventory of schools in the state and a lot of unutilized assets. In 2013, the city approached the legislature with their desire to have a big school program, and the initial approach was to have a city or city school agency run the program. The legislature, in that session, didn't ask, they kind of told the Stadium Authority to get involved, and the law passed. The basis of the law and the MOU is that the funding would be $20 million from the state through lottery, $20 million from the city, which is half of that is from the beverage tax and revenues from the casino operations, and $20 million from the city schools. And the whole idea was to have the Stadium Authority take that $60 million over 30 years and leverage as much money as it could to build and renovate as many schools as possible. Page 5, the law basically said we could have $1.1 billion in outstanding debt. We would have to negotiate an MOU. There were 16 subject areas that would have to be negotiated, and they gave us about 4 months to negotiate the MOU, which was finally accomplished within that time by October of 2013. The partnership is between Stadium Authority, city schools, and of course the IAC. On page 7, the MOU basically created 4 groups to help oversee the program. The overall group leading the umbrella is the executive committee, where each of the 4 parties have 1 vote. We meet quarterly. We do comply with the Open Meetings Act, and the chairmanship is rotated each year. The collaborative group, which is under the executive, really focuses on MBE and workforce development. And the coordinating committee, chaired by the city, focuses on recreational opportunities in and outside the schools. And lastly, the STAC committee, which is chaired by us, is really looking at the metrics of how the program is doing, and we meet quarterly, and we report out on all kinds of issues, contracts, change orders, MBE, and such. And we also report that in the annual report, which is dictated by the law, which we submit each January of every year. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric Johnson. Eric Johnson is in charge of the schools program, and he's going to go over a little bit more about the relationships in the MOU and how we're doing. So, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So, as a follow-up to the last meeting, it seemed that there were, just some key points that we needed to identify, as to who does what and, what the administration piece of this is. So, as Gary said, we leveraged the $60 million for up to $1.1 billion of borrowing for the program. We establish, approve, and monitor all the budgets. The budgets get established after the feasibility studies are done and approved. And then post-establishment of the budget, after we go to procurement, we then assign what is a design-to budget that goes to the architects, and we get a construction manager on board, and then we manage that process up until the time that it goes to construction. And we're always trying to find efficiencies through design, so it's not really, it's based on the feasibility study, but that's really not what the end result of it comes out as. We procure all the design, construction, and associated consultant contracts for the program. Our board, they approve all of our procurements, contracts, and our bond issuances. We take every construction and architectural contract to the Board of Public Works for approval. We approve and issue all payments related to the program. And we do all of our procurements and monitor and administer the program in accordance with the MBE, and we've applied prevailing wage to the program as well. So we do all the monitoring and reporting for all of that as well. As part of the program, we get the contracting community to come up with local workforce development goals. So we put it in their contracts. So we obtain, monitor, and administer all the workforce development commitments during construction. And then, as Gary said, we also chair the STAC committee and report on budget, payments, change orders, MBE, and schedule. And at the end of the job, we do all the compliance and reporting from that through GOMA and whatever associated agencies require that information. So in the IAC role in the program, which has differences between what the program administers here as to what would normally done under the CIP. So there are some similarities, and then there's some differences. So, the IAC reviews and comments on the comprehensive, the CEFMP, which is the Comprehensive Educational Facilities Master Plan. There's a lot of
We have a lot of
acronyms in
acronyms,
here.
don't we?
And then, as part of the program, there was also a comprehensive maintenance plan, and then individual building maintenance plans that are underneath and make up whatever the comprehensive maintenance plan is. So there's a comprehensive maintenance plan for the entire LEA, and then there's individual building maintenance plans that we develop during design and then after construction that establishes what is required for each one of these new assets that we're delivering. IAC oversees and monitors adherence to the BC Baltimore City Schools utilization rate targets, which were established as part of the MOU. And then on a regular annual, semi-annual basis, goes back and looks at the maintenance and performance records and metrics and utilization rate targets as part of the recommendations for their CIP. So it's kind of tied together how they're performing through their comprehensive maintenance plans to look at how that might affect future things for the CIP piece. IAC approves the educational specs for the schools. They you review and comment on the school feasibility studies and approve justification for the EAP, which is the enhanced approval package, which includes the feasibility study, the ed specs, and the preliminary conceptual and schematic design plans. So while at the time that we develop the EAP, we include information about what budget targets are and what the schedule is outlined for it is, the EAP is actually just, it's an enhanced package that identifies what the school concept is and takes it a little farther so we can put numbers to it. Furthermore, in its discretion, and I'm going to read verbatim from this because it's specific. Pardon?
Because it's good.
Because it's good. In its discretion, but only prior to commencement of construction, the IAC may rescind approval of a project if there is a material change in enrollment projections, educational programs, surplusing of adjacent schools, or utilization rates upon which the prior approval was granted. So depending upon how their performance is, or if there's material changes in the project from once it's approved, but before going into construction, if a material change, the IC can rescind its approval. IC review and comments on design submissions up to the 100% DD phase. After that, we lock it because that's the point at which we need to start getting into the construction documents and getting ready to go out and hit the trade market for pricing. The IC is to develop procedures to record closeout projects under the program. The program projects from an administrative and closeout process may differ from the CIP process, so that was why this was identified early on in the MOU and would be developed as we started delivering projects. So it's something that needs to be identified. And then during subsequent annual maintenance inspections, review city schools' compliance with the individual schools' BMPs, which is their individual building maintenance plans. Is there any questions so far? Okay. And then getting back to what the executive committee partners do at the end of the EAP process, which city schools approves, the IAC approves, then it all comes to the executive committee where the four parties approve it. And then the approval is the same as what comes here as the EAP. We also include the information on the budget and schedule, but what's being approved is the feasibility study, the ed specs, and the preliminary schematic design. And then as the partnership is to conduct annual public forums to update all interested parties. So that's the roles and responsibilities portion. So if you have any questions, or feel free to follow up.
Any questions? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. And then just to let you know where we are in the program and the successes we've had so far. We've got 9 schools that have been opened in the past year and a half. We have 5 schools currently under construction. We have 5 schools in design, and we have 9 schools in various forms of planning and/or procurement. Excuse me. Construction costs have been, to this date, tracking below budget. Us and city schools continuously work to gain design and building efficiencies as the projects progress. The project delivery allows for value engineering process during design through all stages. We've taken what we have learned over the last delivery of each set of schools from a VE and best practices and assign that to the future architects that are coming on to say, you know, if this works here, this is what we've done across the program. So there's various things that we've done that we've taken as baseline. And all program administration is procured under one central system of project management. Some other successes that we've had was bond issuances. We've had 2 bond issuances. One was for $386 million. It was $320 million par, when we achieved a $66 million premium on that. And then the second series was $496 million, of which $426 was par and $70 million was premium. From a schedule perspective, we remain on schedule for substantial completion in 2021. City schools and through the annual, they do an annual review of the portfolio. They have added 300,000 square feet of additional inventory to be closed during the program, which will obviously increase the maintenance cost reduction. All of the buildings that are under the program are identified to be LEED Silver or better, of which 5 projects to date we have received LEED Gold. Another savings aspect that we've implemented was an owner's controlled insurance program, which then creates an umbrella of insurance underneath of the stadium authority. So there's not 19 to 20 different insurances potentially on a project. It's all single stream. They have to have their own operations insurance, but we manage builder's risk, general liability, workman's comp, that kind of thing. So it's all one rate. Everyone has the same same costs. Well, we have the costs actually, but it's a savings to the program. It also assists with small businesses as well, participation. And to assist with the maintenance, we partnered with city schools and procured and implemented a computerized maintenance management system, CMMS, to assist with getting the current inventory plus what we're bringing online for a management perspective from PMing and future maintenance. And with that, that's an overview of where we are with the program.
Thank you. Questions?
Madam
Secretary.
Chair. Good morning. Thank you for that presentation. Very informative. I do not have a question concerning your presentation. I would like to say I'd like to speak with you offline concerning the last item that you mentioned, which the department is very interested in, and that is the CMMS and how that's being engaged.
Okay.
And what type of metrics are produced from that, and the efficiencies that are envisioned by doing this. So, thank you.
That's good.
All right. Thank you very much, and I just want to mention that we have Baltimore City here today, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gloria.
I want to ask about, we're talking about Baltimore City Public Schools, about Patterson. Did we ever find out what happened with Patterson and the EPA study?
Yes,
List?
yes,
And Mr. Howard Johnson, can you address that? Talk about Patterson for a moment, and the brownfield and the EPA study?
Yes, Ms. Lala, we did follow up with that. And that school had an approval of the EAP over a year ago that went through and reviewed all of the various options. At that point, because the IAC had signed off and cleared the Stadium Authority to move forward, they dealt with any other issues that came along, and one of them was this clearance of the property, which required the mitigation and the schedule extension. The Maryland Stadium Authority has authority, as was presented, over certain items so that there's not duplication between the state agencies. They have authority over the schedule and the budget. They chose to move forward. They will have to correct in other areas of city schools in order to make the overall program work properly. As far as the brownfield goes, I think we have some information, and sitting in for the secretary is Michael Baer, and he has done some research on that.
Yes, so we have a new.
Okay, but may I say this? before he comes forward, let me understand what you are saying. You are saying you did not request the EPA at your level, which is the Stadium Authority. That's what I'd like to find out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Again, it's all of these acronyms. It's called the Enhanced Approval Package. It includes feasibility study, education.
Federal environmental protection.
As far as
Trying to find out what you actually based your decision on, and did you go through those steps with the feds to look at it? That's all I'm asking. I'm trying to find out, did you look at it? Did they look at it? Do you have a report on it?
Okay, specifically on that.
Because we're going to have to vote on it. I'm going to have to vote on it, and I just want to be sure. I mean, we're sending children to that site. This is Patterson we're talking about, right?
That is correct. That's your
and these
question.
young people are going to be on that site. I'm trying to find out what we really are doing in the state of Maryland when we rebuild, when we rehab a site that might be a brownfield. What steps we are going through that are acceptable to put children back on that site.
Could I
Want me to
defer
take
that to Maryland Stadium Authority,
Yes.
Eric?
Sure. Hi, this is Eric Johnson of Maryland Stadium Authority. Yes, there was a study done by an independent environmental consultant. It was found that the site, the EPA site, number one, has been contained. There's slurry walls, and it is a self-contained site. There are measures that we are taking on the Patterson site for any potential future issues that might occur if the EPA site were to fail. And that includes putting a vapor mitigation system in and reworking some of the site areas that will be left uncapped from any pervious locations that are on the site. And we are stripping and replacing the top 1 foot of soil in the areas that will be left exposed.
Because that's how it ended last time. Ms. Lala, did that answer your question?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And Ms. Lala, I want to be clear that the enhanced approval package, and we do have 4 more projects that are coming before us today, and I did have on the agenda at the last meeting Patterson, which the way I interpreted the MOU, and part of the reason we're having this meeting today, I saw a change in the dollars and the schedule, and wanted to inform the commission of this change to see if you had any questions as we approved it going forward. Our recommendation was to allow it to go forward. As it turned out, because we made the approval over a year earlier, we don't get to do it again. The MOU only allows us to do it once, and we did, and when the additional items came up, conditions that were unknown, at least as far as the final solution for that piece of property, that school, to keep everybody safe. As MSA moved through them, they had the full authority to do that with the budget and schedule. And so we will not be voting on that EAP. We've already done that over a year ago. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Thank you again for your presentation today. We appreciate the fact that you were here to update us, and I just again wanted to recognize Baltimore City. You want to introduce our guests from Baltimore City?
Yes. Go ahead and stand up,
Yeah,
please.
please introduce yourselves, because these are the partners that the Stadium Authority's been talking about today.
Lynette, could you introduce yourself, and Cindy?
Yeah, so I'm Lynette Washington. I'm sorry, I'm doing a recall, but I'm the interim chief operations officer, and this is Cindy Smith. She's our director of design and construction.
And I want to brag that the amount of work that those two do is absolutely incredible. First time I met with Cindy and looked at the projects that she was overseeing as far as planning, I said, I've not seen 3 planners that could carry that load. So, and Lynette, you're incredible at organizing. Baltimore City, since in my short tenure here, have really improved their throughput. You're going to see later that they don't have any rescinded projects that become contingency that are moving forward. It's a big change from the previous year. and
change.
Congratulations.
Thank you for your efforts in that. All right, let us, again, thank you all for presenting today.
you.
We appreciate it very much. We're going to move to B, under Section 2, which is one of the EAPs, and I'll turn it over to our Executive Director.
Thank you. Fred, could you take us through this, please?
Sure. Morning, Madam Superintendent, members. We have
Morning, Fred.
5 enhanced approval package items today. There's a summary chart on page 28 of your books behind tab B that gives some square footage, enrollment, and cost information for each of the projects, which are Highlandtown Elementary Middle School, that's an addition. Commodore John Rogers Elementary Middle School, also in addition. Northwood Elementary School replacement. Robert Coleman Elementary School, a strategic renovation, and James Mosher Elementary School, which is a renovation addition project. Before we go to each individual item, were there any questions on the summary?
If I may,
Yes.
on behalf of Secretary McCord, thanks for pulling that information together, Fred. I think the Secretary in particular likes to see these kind of metrics, these summary statistics available on projects, and I know at designee level that we've been looking at these numbers and potentially including them on other projects. So I think the value of that, having that information in one place is very useful for the decision makers.
And Madam Chair, this was the request of the commission from our last meeting, so this
Yes.
is the information you had asked for.
Right. Thank you. Go ahead, Fred.
All right, thank you. The first item is Highlandtown Elementary Middle School. Would like me to read the motion first?
Yes,
All right.
please.
To approve Highlandtown Elementary Middle School, number 237, as a 10-year plan, 21st Century Building Program project, and to approve the enhanced approval package in accordance with the memorandum of understanding so that the project may proceed into design as an addition project to increase the capacity of the school from 536 students to 914 students in grades pre-kindergarten through 8th grade, with an addition area of up to 35,140 gross square feet.
Any questions on the motion? Do we have a approved for, anyone want to approve the motion?
I'll move it.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Next item is Commodore John Rogers. To approve Commodore John Rogers Elementary Middle School, number 27, as a 10-year plan, 21st Century Building Program project, and to approve the enhanced approval package in accordance with the MOU so that the project may proceed into design as an addition project to increase the capacity of the school from 619 students to 1,044 students in grades pre-K through 8 with an addition area of up to 49,084 gross square feet.
Any questions on the motion? All right.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I just want to make a comment. It's really great to see that we are able to increase the utilization up to that 90% level. So this is really a very positive thing. I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Third item is James Mosier Elementary School, to approve James Mosier Elementary School as a 10-year plan, 21st Century Building Program project, and to approve the enhanced approval package in accordance with the MOU so that the project may proceed into design as a renovation and addition project with a projected capacity of 435 students in grades pre-K through 2, with a demolition of 5,000 gross square feet, renovation of 64,252 gross square feet, and an addition of 17,000 gross square feet. And this James Mosier project is a companion to the previously approved Calverton Elementary School, Middle School project, which will house grades 3 through 8 and is about 2 blocks away from James Mosier.
Okay. Any questions on the motion? All right, do we have approval?
Moved.
Do a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Robert Coleman Elementary School, to approve Robert Coleman Elementary School, number 142, as a 10-year plan, 21st Century Building Program project, and to approve the enhanced approval package in accordance with the MOU so that the project may proceed into design as a renovation and addition project with an unchanged capacity of 314 students in grades pre-K through 5, with the renovation of the existing 45,819 gross square feet building and small additions to improve the entry sequence and community access. And Robert Coleman is an open space school, and that situation will be remedied with this project.
Great. Any questions on that? All right, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And
Wanna-
Northwood.
I want to point out before we go any further that we have added a condition to the enhancement for Northwood Elementary School, and I'll let the executive director explain.
Thank you. As we are looking at projects, and not just within the MSA and 21st Century, we're looking for ways to get projects moving and keep them moving. The bottom line is the money flows to help the kids have better places to learn. This is a school that we had actually considered not approving because we couldn't quite get to the information that we needed as far as population. There is information that we have from the studies the city's provided that show that this population is going to decrease going forward, and that if we built the school as it's currently moving, that it would not be 90% occupied or utilized, which is part of our charge to ensure that. However, factually, when we look at all the schools around this in that region, there are many of them that are overcrowded. But we have more 21st century schools coming forward that aren't yet before us. So we've added a condition to move this project forward, but allowing us to continue to look at the other projects that come in. And we're asking city schools to, by administrative or other methods, to make sure the school maintains the 90% utilization.
Okay. Fred, go ahead with the motion.
Northwood Elementary School, to approve Northwood Elementary School number 242 as a 10-year plan, 21st Century Building Program project, and to approve the enhanced approval package in accordance with the MOU so that the project may proceed into design as a replacement project with a proposed state-rated capacity of 704 students in grades pre-K through 5, with an area of 98,091 gross square feet as identified in the site-specific educational specifications developed by Baltimore City Public Schools, and to add the condition that Baltimore City Public Schools will pursue boundary alignment and portfolio actions as needed to ensure that Northwood Elementary School attains and maintains the targeted enrollment of 90% of state-rated capacity.
Any questions about the addition? All right, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move into the section 3 on school safety, and I'm going to turn to the executive director to introduce the deputy director.
Thank you. Joan?
Good morning, commission members. Before you are two informational items regarding the school safety program. That would be item 3A and item 3B. So the first is on page 33. And this is a report on the information received through a survey of the LEAs to identify their highest security improvement needs and priorities. We particularly looked at gathering information on two best practices for preventing casualties should there be an attack on a school. The first is classrooms or other teaching areas that have both doors lockable from the inside and areas of visual refuge on the inside. And two, communications specifically for safety. The last section of the survey asked the LEAs for their three highest priorities and associated costs. The report can be found on page 34. Since this report was prepared for the agenda today, we have received a response from one more LEA who identified classroom door locks as their highest priority. As you can see on the report, under results and observations, the cost for providing these upgrades would be tremendous. And results in this is on page 34, section B, C, D. There are associated costs that have been provided by the LEAs. And even if some of them could be on the high side, if you even take half of those costs, it's tremendous. Although the LEA's top number one priorities were entry vestibules and interior classroom lock sets, we found the priorities vary from district to district. In the end, we are looking at bottom line to arrive at adequacy levels of security as an aspiration. I think what I'll do is go into the next one because they
Yes.
really work together.
Well, I just want to compliment you. I absolutely, as my staff knows, I love synthesis and one-page summaries rather than giving us everything to look through, and this is very well done, so thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so item 3B is on page 35, and this item identifies safety projects received and approved thus far by our office. If you recall, the IAC had given us authority to make those approvals and then report back. Washington County has also made a request that they are not on here, and was just recent, and we will approve and report on those projects at the next meeting. So recognizing the IAC's interest in moving projects such as these forward quickly, we have inquired of the LEAs if there are any reasons or obstacles for delays in asking for projects. We have heard back from a handful of those LEAs, and every response has been different. Most of them, it's simply a matter of getting through the CIP season. There are others that just haven't quite decided on what project to submit. And then there was another answer that indicated they would be submitting shortly. They're getting cost estimates. So actually, I should say there was one more LEA who indicated that since these projects there's a shared cost for these projects. LEAs provide part of the cost and we provide the other. Since that happened after they had their budgets put together, that they wanted to wait until a little bit more near the due date or the last day to submit so they could see how their budgets are going and if they have enough.
Right. Right.
dollars. I'd also like to report, it's not in here, but I'd like to report that parallel to this ongoing work of identifying advisory best security practices and the LEA's highest priorities for school safety improvements, as well as approving the LEA request for school safety grant program applications under HB 1783, under HB 1072, which is the Child Sexual Abuse Prevention, Instruction, and Training Act, the IAC and the State Council on, I have to read this because it's so long, on child abuse and neglect are to jointly develop guidelines and best practices for the assessment and modification of physical facilities and spaces to reduce opportunities for child sexual abuse. And that has a due date of December 1st, 2018, which is right around the corner. In meeting with this council, or representatives of this council, Claudia Remington is the executive director. In meeting with her, we've learned that a best practice for security can be counter to a best practice for child sexual abuse
Right.
prevention. So we've also learned from them that they have looked to Florida, who had developed best practices in 2003, best practices to prevent child abuse. And we've asked them to go back to Florida and see what results have really come about from utilizing these practices. So ultimately, we will need to ask for an extension of the due date to give this thoughtful study and analysis to come up with a meaningful report. We do not have a timeline yet. I'm believing that we might establish a timeline next week or the week after. So I maybe be able to come back in December and give you some more information on that.
Do you need us to act on that in any way to support the extension?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, I know I phrased it that way, but the act says that this is due by December 1st,
Right.
but I don't know who we would report to, except to you.
Madam Chair, it's a staff report that
Okay.
it's a legislative requirement, so we'll put that together. And I think Johns Hopkins University are some
They're
of the
also involved.
associates of Director Remington, and we've asked questions to try to pull back the information that we need to study. And so there's just so much there
Right.
that they are trying to put some summary reports together for us, and I think whenever we see that, we'll be able to estimate when we can come forward with recommendations of physical attributes that need to change. And as an example, the areas of visual refuge, when you're looking at attacks from armed assailants coming into a school, an area that a person can't see behind a locked door where kids can just get out of sight has worked almost every time. But that's absolutely 180 degrees off from
Correct.
a door that should never be locked and no invisible places throughout the
Right.
school. So
Which
we're going to
has
have to
been our
synthesize.
prior requirement.
That's right. And it might be the latter, and we've asked for some of this information as we compare these types of potentials. What is the ratio of a shooting event happening and
Versus the other.
And I think that'll be important, and we look forward to presenting it to you because I think that we would like to get your feedback before we finish the report, that's for sure.
Does anyone else have any questions about that? Yes.
I have a
Todd.
question about the study. So 47,000 classrooms report,
Oh, okay.
right, whether or not they have lockable doors in an area of visual refuge. 21,000 report that they do not, and the cost is $436,000 per classroom to have door locks in visual refuge. And then you indicate that the high cost is probably due to the open space classrooms that would need entire renovation. Has the data been analyzed to determine what percentage of the 21,000 are driving the average cost up? In other words, where's the mean line? How many 21,000 of the 21,000 classrooms for a significantly smaller percentage of just getting door locks because they already have the visual refuge could be knocked off? And has there I mean, this is not the study, right? This is a page and a half, or 2 pages worth
Good
of.
question.
So, this survey, it really wasn't a study, it was a survey that we sent to the LEAs. We asked for a fairly quick turnaround, and they, for the most part, they did a pretty good job, but they weren't, I don't think they were real accurate in if they had more time. So this cost, I'm not answering your question yet, I know. This cost is, even if you said, well, they wanted to be on the safe side, so if you took out half of this cost, it would still be a huge, huge number. Now, to get to your question, no, we have not been able to get that granular with it.
And Mr. Schuler, to do that, there's more than one way to solve each of these problems. So we may have an open-ended school, and the solution that we might see it represented at $9.3 billion, which, by the way, the entire, according to the LEAs, the entire deferred maintenance is $24 billion. So just to kind of put it in perspective,
scale.
it may be that they are thinking that, yeah, we're going to have to gut the school, put new walls up, put a new heating, air conditioning system in, new lighting and everything else to be able to have classrooms with doors on them that most teachers and learners would like to have. And this would be required. It may be that if we went out to look at the real solution, that we can't solve your open classroom, but we could put an additional vestibule, say, on an open classroom unit so that it does have that kind of security, or maybe just a pull-down blind. So there's a lot of ways to solve this, and it would be on a case-by-case basis. As we are allocating the funds, as you're aware, from your decision, it's on a per-student basis. So we haven't gone to well, we don't have the capacity really, but to go and look at every situation around the state, and the LEAs don't either, to be able to do the analysis, because if there's not really going to be funding to help them, they don't have the effort to be able to answer that question.
So we don't have the ability to ferret out which of the 21,000 classrooms may be easy fixes.
We do not. And the way that we've allocating the dollars, we are of the belief that the LEAs locally will be able to use those dollars for the highest benefit. And that's the way the dollars are currently being allocated to them to use.
And we're doing the same thing in the school safety sub-cabinet with the funding that's available through that. It's on a per pupil basis with a back, a $200,000. Everybody gets that, and then a per pupil on top of that. And we're also we're going to be looking at 5 projects, I think, on Monday at the sub-cabinet, and we're doing the same thing. We're letting the locals make those decisions and telling us what their highest needs are. And I think for the most part, we're getting that information.
And it's not the best way to do it, but it's a way with the limited resources we have of optimizing those and getting projects done.
The per pupil
Yes.
is not the best way, but it's our
Right.
fairness way.
Exactly.
And then you rely on the locals to figure out how many classrooms for their bucks that they can.
Exactly. Right.
Okay.
But very good question, thank you. Other questions for Joan on this report? All right, thank you.
Can I
Joan?
just say one other thing?
Absolutely.
If you think about this, the 2 reports that I'm talking about are actually the report for the, I gotta read this name, State Council on Child Abuse and Neglect. That report that we're working on with them on, you can see how that might overlap with the other work that we're doing, which also overlaps with the work that the center is doing. And so that's why we want to be careful about this and really take some time.
And that's why I'm so glad that we have our executive director, who also sits on the safety sub-cabinet. So there's a lot of good continuity between what we're trying to do with limited funds, although it's great to have these funds. We have never had them before for school safety, but we have to be, prudent with how they're allocated. And I appreciate the fact that, Mr. Schuler wants to make sure that we're doing it in a fair way. So thank you very much. Very informative. All right, so now we're going to move to section 4 in our books, which is the Capital Improvement Program timeline and process, pages 37 and 38.
Arabia.
So Arabia's back to the table from last month. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you as well. Good morning. For a visual of the CIP timeline, I would like to ask you all to turn to page 38. While the activities of the CIP process occur throughout the year, the CIP process begins with the IAC staff providing local educational agencies with instructions on submitting their upcoming CIP. The next step is for the local educational agency to submit their educational facility master plan. The intent of the plan is to frame the school facility needs, as well as to provide an overview of their unique challenges. During the summer months, the CIP team met with school systems that were submitting major construction projects. And when I say major construction projects, I'm talking about new schools, replacement schools, limited renovation projects, additions and renovations. And during the month of October, the LEAs submit their CIP to IAC staff for review and their comprehensive maintenance plan. In November, the IAC staff develops recommendations for 75% of the capital budget, the governor's preliminary capital budget. A working draft of the recommendations are included in your book, and we'll walk through them a little bit later. The LEAs have an opportunity to appeal the staff recommendations at the December 13th meeting. You, the commission, need to approve or are required to approve the CIP, 75% of the capital budget, by December the 31st. The ISD staff will present 90% of the anticipated capital budget in February, late February, and a copy of the recommendations will be given to the Maryland General Assembly by March 1st. 100% of the anticipated capital budget will be presented to the IAC in May, and the final publication will be available in June. If you would like, I can stop right now and take questions, or we can turn to page 39.
Any questions? Just to say that this is one of our most important duties as this commission, and we'll certainly give everything careful consideration to the staff's recommendations. Arabia, do you want to explain how the staff how we're constructed at the designee level so that they know the intense review that goes on before it comes here?
Yeah, so the CIP team includes Michael Baer. He's a designee for the Maryland Department of Planning. He looks at the enrollments, he looks at the utilization, he looks at the community aspect of a project. Clarence Felder, he's with the Department of General Services. He mostly reviews systemic renovation projects, looking for eligibility, making sure that what they submitted is in line with the state goals and priorities. And we also have Fred Mason.
Fred's there.
Is very important to the process from the Maryland State Department of Education. So we receive CIP submissions, we sit in the room for hours, we give it a status, I'll say a status code. So we have A for approval, B for deferred, and we've also added a new code, B minus, which means deferred pending minor issues. We have a status code of C, which stands for deferred due to scope issues, and then D as for denied. In this CIP, we were not able to review all of the projects as of yet because we're looking at funding projects. So we created a 10-year, we ran an analysis, 10-year average of new authorization for each LEA. And so we looked at the projects where these dollars could be allocated to. And so for projects, and because we are looking at $280 million authorization, because that's what the governor generally has done in the past, we wanted to be very conservative because we don't know what the final capital budget is going to look like. And so the process that we all involved in is very thorough. We also have Kim Spivey, and she's an expert in the area of the CIP process, and Jones Schaefer. And Jamie, he's instrumental when it comes to Baltimore City and helping us walk through the projects.
So the
and other
bottom line
staff.
is, there's a lot of work that goes on before
a
it
lot of
comes
coordination,
to,
a
for
lot
our
of
review.
coordination.
So I just kind of wanted our new members to know that, since those of us that have been doing this for a few years understand that very well.
Yes.
So we can move on then, thank you.
Okay. So as background, the final CIP is required to be approved by you, the commission, on an annual basis. For the FY 2020 CIP, the commission has received submissions from all of the school systems and the Merlin School for the Blind, which we haven't had happen in the last few years. So it was really impressive. For this meeting, we want to provide you with a visual estimate on the overall funding that could possibly be allocated to the various LEAs. So we're looking at 75% of the budget, but we also projected out to 100%. That could change depending on the final budget number. It could change depending on the contingency dollars, which may increase. It could change based on the enrollment growth and relocatable classroom program funding that's appropriated by the Maryland General Assembly. So we wanted to give you a good visual. And if we can turn to page 40, I can walk you through this working document. Okay, so this document, I've already said, could change based on a number of factors: outstanding project issues being resolved, the amount of the governor's preliminary capital budget, worksheet adjustments. Column A identifies all the LEAs that submitted a CIP request in the Maryland School for the Blind. Column B provides a breakdown of the number of project requests. As you can see, the LEAs submitted a total of 232 projects, 49 being planning approvals and 183 worth of funding. Column C is a summary of the amount of funding requested by each LEA. Column D is a snapshot of the average new authorization allocated to the LEA over the last 10 years. Column E summarizes the staff's recommendation for each of the LEAs and is based on $280 million. And so I want to double back and I want to talk about column D, the LEA's 10-year average new funds, because I want to be transparent. If you look at the total dollar amount shown, it's $281 million. The authorization was based on 280. We mistakenly notified the LEA that he was eligible for more funding than really should have been given. So we wanted to show that here, and we were able to make adjustments to still stay within the 280 million, but I just want to point that out because that sticks out to me. So moving on. Column E summarizes the staff recommendations, preliminary staff recommendations for each of the LEAs. As you'll notice, Allegheny County's authorization shown in column D is higher than what they are requesting. This is because the state's commitment to fund the new Allegheny High School was met, and what they submitted this year was for 3 systemic renovation projects. So those funds that would have gone to Allegheny County this year now can be dispersed out to other jurisdictions to meet their facility needs. Caroline County's situation is the opposite. Their anticipated allocation is less. However, it appears we may be able to provide funding up to their request. Cecil County's request and proposed allocations are consistent. Prince George's County anticipated authorization is rather low. This year, they submitted less projects, and they have a number of planning approvals, and Prince George's representatives are here, that do not require funding. Now, we are working with them on at least 2 projects to try to help them move forward. They have submitted a project for the Innovative Incentive Pilot Program, which was authorized by Senate Bill 92. The intent of the bill is to provide an incentive, a bonus, to school systems that come in 30% below the state average of state construction costs. Prince George's County believes that they can meet this obligation. If we are able to fund this project, there will be a conditional approval. We will be asking that they bid the contract by October the 1st and that they provide a guaranteed maximum price cost for the project at the same date. Column F summarizes 75% of the total recommendation that the IAC will be asking you to consider in December. Column G summarizes the prior year funds available for allocation as of today. This number will change as contract awards are reverted and funds are applied to the LEA's contingency balance. Column H summarizes the staff's recommendation of the enrollment growth and relocatable classroom fund for FY19 and FY20. I want to just stop right there while we're looking at the EGRC. I'm going to go back to column G. Prince George's County had $10 million worth of contingency funds. And so we don't want to have money just sitting in a pot when we have projects that need to move forward. So we've allocated those dollars to their projects. And the same applies to EGRC. They had FY19 EGRC funds, and they had FY20 EGRC funds. So we try to utilize all those dollars as well.
Makes sense.
And for column I, projects that have 100% of total staff recommendation, this is what it could look like. We're sure it's going to change slightly because we need to make adjustments to accommodate the 2 projects in PG that we're trying to work through and get the issues resolved. So we know this is going to be slightly different, but how different, we're not sure yet. Column K is the percentage of enrollment of the LEAs, the average percentage. And we've compared that percentage with the average state funding and found that for most of the LEAs, the dollars per student across the state are consistent. And I'll stop right there, and I'm available for questions.
So, Madam Chair, if I could, our approach this year is a little different than your members that are aware in the past. We always have had to meet the 75% allocation recommendation by December. But there were projects, those were in dollar amounts. Some projects were 100% funded in planning, other projects were unknown. And we didn't, some of the LEAs didn't know until May what was actually going to be funded. So behind each of these numbers, we have the projects that are being requested, and we try to follow by the priority that the LEA has set themselves. So we go down one, if we can fund that within these dollars, we go down to the next and so forth. Immediately after this meeting, we will send out that list of the projects as we see them and what we think we can provide to each of the LEAs and start talking back and forth with the intent that we come to the December meeting fully in agreement with the projects that you're going to consider. That each of those projects will only be funded to 75%, but with that information, they can talk to their local governances and start those projects today rather than in May. So we're cutting about a half a year off of a project is our intent, so that things can move forward. 4% escalation rate per year. We're going to save, we hope, about 2% if everybody moves off these project costs by getting them moving. And that's all hypothetical. We'll see how it goes. But having the information early and then to come to the appeal meeting transparently, so that the appeals are not for more money, but appeals about positions of their projects. I guess there could be appeals for more money, but we hope to get that worked out, and we only have this many dollars that we allocate until the governor tells us that we have more, in which case we'll dive back in and see what else we can find to allocate. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Questions?
I have a question. What's the relationship between this budget and the School Construction Act of 2013 with respect to the bond funding for the city schools?
They're not directly related. However, if we have a project request, say in Baltimore City, and we can see that there is a school that's going to replace nearby a school that's being requested in this program, Michael will look to see what the population changes will be and whether we've solved the problem that's being requested with the 21st Century Fund dollars. In most cases, that won't be the case because Baltimore City will have gone through their long-range comprehensive facility plans and worked those things out. But there could be a conflict, and in which case we resolve that conflict at this stage before we bring it to you.
So these funds are in addition to?
That's correct.
So, just because we've been through this process a few times, some of us, I think this is very helpful, the way that this is organized, and look forward to the appeals, because I think it's going to be a different process.
Yes.
And I think we'll really have streamlined some of this, and I love the idea that we're going to save some money getting these projects started a half a year earlier. I think that's really going to be a huge boost. So, thank you to all the behind-the-scenes work to this table, because I know it was significant.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, let's move on then. We're now in section 5, which is, I'm sorry, section 6. I think that would be Michael, on site approvals.
Yes, thank you. I'm pulling a little double duty today. So as part of the process we're just talking about, site approvals are required. We do have a couple today. We have a few more that will be coming next month, including a couple in Prince George's County, the projects that are underneath the numbers we just looked at. The first one is for site approval of the Hamptons West Development School site. The Frederick County Board of Education is requesting site approval for the Hamptons West Elementary School site that is located on Gas House Pike, about half-mile east of McCaig Road, east of the city of Frederick. The property is owned by Oakdale Investments LLC and is known as the Hamptons West Development Site. The dedication of an elementary school site was a condition of Frederick County's development approval of the Lake Linganore PUD project, which is proposed to have 450 residential units at build-out and is currently served by Deer Crossing Elementary School. And the project will also relieve overcrowding at Oakdale, Newmarket, Green Valley, Centerville, and Liberty Elementary Schools. The new school is anticipated to open in the fall of 2022. The project has been through State Clearinghouse, and the Board of Ed approved the site in 2014.
Any questions for Michael? All right, you want to read the motion?
Sure. The motion is to approve the use by the Frederick County Board of Education of 15 acres on Gas House Pike, a half-mile east of McCaig Road, at Tax Map 69, Parcel 202, for the construction of a future elementary school to serve the eastern portion of Frederick County in the Hamptons West neighborhood, part of the Lake Linganore Plan Unit Development Project, adhering to the actions identified in the State Clearinghouse Review, State Identifier MD 2018-0917-0794.
Any questions on the motion? All right, do we have approval?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. Our second item is in Montgomery County. The Montgomery County Board of Education is requesting site approval for the Northeast Consortium Elementary School Number 17 site located at Saddle Creek Drive and Bentley Park Drive in Burtonsville. In 2010, the Montgomery County Board approved the site plan for the Fairland Park community. As a condition of approval, the board required that developers dedicate a portion of the site for a future elementary school as identified in the county's Fairland Master Plan. The developers subsequently conveyed the site to Bentley Park LLC by deed in 2013. Bentley Park LLC has delivered a no-consideration deed to the board to convey the site for the school. Prior to recording the deed, the Montgomery County Board of Education must receive IAC approval for the site. The plan, enrollment, and design capacity of the future elementary school will be determined through future capital programming. The Montgomery County Board of Ed approved the site on February 13th of this year, and it has been through State Clearinghouse.
Okay, can you read the motion, please?
Okay. The motion is to approve the use by the Montgomery County Board of Education of 10.95 acres at Saddle Creek Drive and Bentley Park Drive in Burtonsville for the construction of a future elementary school to serve the Burtonsville area, adhering to the actions identified in the State Clearinghouse Review, State Identifier MD 2018-0314-0174.
Any questions on the motion? We have approval.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now we're going to move to section 7 and page 45. This is the approval of the property transfer of St. Mary's County.
Yes. So we did receive a request by St. Mary's County to approve the transfer of the Mary McLeod Bethune Educational Center on Colton Point Road in Bushville that was constructed in 1961 as an early education center. It was part of the Dinard Bethune Elementary School complex until an addition to the elementary school was completed. It has housed the St. Mary's County Public Schools Department of Information Technology since 1992. However, the building requires extensive renovations, and the county determined that that was not feasible, so they are seeking to sell it.
Any questions on this transfer? All right, Michael, you need the motion?
Okay. The motion is to approve the transfer of the Mary McLeod Bethune Educational Center at 22975 Colton Point Road in Bushville, Maryland, from the St. Mary's County Public Schools to the St. Mary's County government.
Any questions on the motion? All right, we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks.
All right. Item 7B, facility status changes.
Informational only, Madam Chair.
All right, any questions on this item? All right. We have any other business for the IAC today?
Madam Chair, we have none from your staff.
Any questions from the members? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. Oh, I didn't do a motion for adjournment.
Oh, good.
I'm seeing our two attorneys looking at me with, all right, could we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Now we are adjourned.
Thank you.
10:31. Thank you.